So
let's
yeah,
continue.
go ahead.
Unless you wanted to talk more about Panama, you got anything else you wanted to say?
Oh yeah, sure. So
Mm,
so a lot of those experiences in Panama actually really served to help me with my teaching of the Taekwondo in college, and then
okay.
eventually after college, going into work at the Voodoo Lounge.
Mm,
A lot of the fights that I broke them up with the thought that okay, I don't want anything like in Panama to happen. I don't want anybody to
oh,
experience what I experienced, and there's
yeah.
so many things, there's so many vibes that happen in a nightclub, right? It's uncanny, right? Like nobody really thinks about anybody else's situation in a nightclub, but
Mm.
nightclubs, it's just when
Did you have to like develop like a sense of awareness? Like maybe you're already predicting that this person's going to be a problem by their behavior, or maybe you can't hear what they're saying, but you can see by emotional gestures, or like this person's becoming a problem. So maybe you have to deal with this before it becomes a problem, or was it always like, oh, a fight breaks out, or something went wrong?
at first it was a fight breaks out, okay, let me just go right now and go and deal with it. But it's only after time you start to develop that sense, like okay, why is this person going on like that? Is there a telltale sign of this person going on like this before? The only time you really start to think about stuff like that is when you have the education. So when you're breaking fights up, you don't really think that there's a legal way to do things. You don't think of, okay, if I do this, this person could get hurt. And if that person gets hurt, that's another liability. You don't think about stuff like that until you get educated in it. Yeah, you're working in a bar. When you're working in that industry, you have classes to teach you about how people are when they're drunk, about the laws of serving alcohol, who can get alcohol, who can't get alcohol, all of that stuff, right? So in these classes, they also let you know that, hey, this is one of the things they teach you. Never argue with a drunk person, right? Why? Well, when you ask them plainly, the instructor is going to tell you, if you argue with a drunk person, who's better, you or the drunk person? You're like, oh, okay. All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Right? So don't argue. So ever since then, don't argue.
Mm.
Never argue with a drunk person. You will never win. They'll always
Right,
win.
right.
They'll never lose. That's what I meant to say. So learning things like that it's kind of like why it was just easier to do the job, because you won't take things personally. You already know, like, look, this person is doing this because they're drunk, right? They
Sure.
can't control themselves. So you start to treat people a little bit, with a little bit more compassion. So
Of course.
by that time, when I've taken these classes and stuff like that, my first classes, and that time that I met you, right? This is just after taking these classes and after learning one specific technique, right? Because you had asked me, did you do martial arts ever? After seeing me do this one technique, and all it
Mm.
was literally pushing one shoulder, pulling the other shoulder, turning the person around, grabbing them in a headlock, right? And then walking them forward. That's all it was, right? And
Mm.
like I've used that technique. I think I used it like straight up over probably 300 times, bro, right? And not
Mm.
once did I ever get into an altercation after, right?
Mm.
Every single time. Yeah, like it's funny, like when you say like you didn't hurt that person, you prevented that person from doing this, and it's all true. That's why I learned that technique. When that technique
Mm.
was taught to me, it was, listen, do this to get them out because it's not going to hurt them. They can't hurt you. So, go
Very good.
all ahead on that one. I'm like, okay, no problem. No problem.
Mm. But when you were like, because you were like head of security, if I remember correctly, right? You had gotten promoted to like the top guy. So obviously
Yeah.
that's, because of this ability that you have, But like, what about like when you're just, everything is calm, you're obviously looking around, making sure everything is good. Is there like like signs that you would see like, okay, I got to watch this person. This person looks like it might get worse,
Yeah,
You ever have
yeah,
some,
yeah,
yeah?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
had many of those. Like for example, when someone's like for example, it's like when I'm walking through the club and I'd see somebody like on the dance floor, for example, right? When somebody's a little bit too aggressive on the dance floor, that's usually a telltale sign that one, they've drank too much, or two, they've taken something that you don't serve in that club. Now, if they're free and they're, if it's nobody on the dance floor, fine, that's okay, right?
Right.
But if there are other people on the dance floor and they're being that free, they, and they hit somebody, well, fights can happen. So if you're seeing that, that's one thing that you're going to have to probably take that person aside and be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, and I understand you're having a good time. I want you to keep having a good time, but do me a favor. No, you're being a little bit too, so
calm down.
Calm down. Yeah. And usually 90% of the time you're going to get, okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So there's that other 10%. So you can always sweeten the deal with, hey, could you please, turn that down a little bit. So, what we're going to do is let's sweeten the deal. Let me give you a free drink, for your troubles.
Absolutely.
And that would usually be like, oh, okay, thank you, no problem. Always lead with a little bit of honey.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the best way. That way everybody's happy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's go a little bit more into your kung fu training too. You've done a lot of trolley foot. I know you've been training some other stuff too, like wide eyebrow, and I know you always enjoy, learning different things, comparing or utilizing different training. But for your kung fu training, like what is your kung fu training like today? Like, because I know you have, obviously teaching Tai Chi, but you train a few times a week. What are you doing for your kung fu?
Well, kung fu I train every day. I train it just like Tai Chi. I mean, in my eyes, Tai Chi is another style of kung fu.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I train my kung fu every day. Right now, thanks to Sifu Richard Chin, I've just attained my first degree black belt level in Bak Mei Kung Fu.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Like me, the type of person I am, I still can't believe I even gotten that far. And really, have I gotten that far already? But everything that he's taught me so far, I practice every single day. My biggest push for me for Bak Mei Kung Fu was it's Hakka martial arts, and my mother's Hakka, right? So I just always wanted to learn something Hakka, whether it be dragon, Bak Mei, southern praying mantis, or so on,
Cool.
But of course, my trolley foot, unfortunately, I don't train trolley foot as much as I should. My favorite form is Ping Kyun because of how short it is. So that's why I still practice Ping Kyun. My Shumui Fa could be a little bit better. My Sub-G Kauda is almost non-existent. I don't practice my Sub-G at all.
We'll have to fix that soon. So we'll have to get together and train.
Please, anytime.
I think you have very good kung fu forms. I always enjoy watching you.
Thank you very much. So it's really mostly Tai Chi and Bak Mei.
Okay.
Usually.
So let's move on to the second question. You were talking about Bak Mei being a Hakka style, it's short and stuff like that, and you also teach Tai Chi. So for you, like what is Tai Chi? Well, I guess we'll use Tai Chi more since we've already talked about Bak Mei. But how effective is it for fighting and for self-defense? And you could even talk about Kung Fu if you wanted to say Chole Fut and Bak Mei too. But for those people who are watching that might not know a lot about, Tai Chi, maybe you can give us a little, your version of it.
Okay, first and foremost, Tai Chi is a philosophy. It's a science of polar opposites, right? You have black, you have white, you have night, you have day, you have up, you have down, you have in, you have out, right? So it is a science of polar opposites, right? When we look at this sign, well, I have some stuff in it. By the way, you see this Wynter Tai logo is all thanks to you, Joe. Right? But okay, so the yin yang, right? The yin yang, the actual proper name for the yin yang sign is Tai Chi 2. Why? Because yin and yang, right? It's called, those are the components. But together, when they're together, they're not yin and yang. Together, they're Tai Chi. So that is Tai Chi, right? So when you separate them, that's when you have the yin and yang. That's what Tai Chi is, a philosophy, right? Secondly, what your question refers to more is Tai Chi Chuan, right? The fist, right? So that last word, of course, as you know, it's same thing with Cantonese. You put that word onto the end, and you know it becomes a martial art, right? Or a fist form, right? A lot of people nowadays like to differentiate between Tai Chi and Tai Chi Chuan, right? Saying that if you only do forms, you are doing Tai Chi, and when you put the movements to fighting, now you're doing Tai Chi Chuan. I beg to differ from that. Why? Because Tai Chi is a philosophy. Any kind of representation of Tai Chi in your body, right? Especially with martial intent, now it becomes a martial art. Now it becomes Tai Chi Chuan. Whether you use it for fighting or not, it's still Tai Chi Chuan. So Tai Chi Chuan now. Let's get in more what Tai Chi Chuan is. Tai Chi Chuan literally is the representation of yin and yang in your body.
And for you, like, how has it helped you with fighting and self-defense? I mean, obviously you don't get into a lot of fights these days, but like, how do you feel it could help someone with self-defense, and fighting?
Well, first and foremost, when it comes to fighting and self-defense, the only way that you can use Tai Chi or any martial art for fighting and self-defense is if you learn to do it for fighting or self-defense.
Absolutely. That you just remind me of something in my own training, because I've been doing Tai Chi longer than Kung Fu. And when I started getting into Jiu-Jitsu, we started starting from standing up. And some people were finding it hard to take me down because, I don't know, for whatever reason they were finding it hard. But after a while, I started noticing I was able to either root ground myself or disconnect certain body parts to set up a takedown, or to put myself in a better position. So that way when we would land, I would be dominant, And I did, however, fight someone who knew judo, who was able to throw me pretty good, but they landed in my triangle choke. So like I was up in the air and people were like, ooh. And then when we landed, he was in a triangle choke, and so I was able to submit him, thank God, because that was very different, So I think for me, Tai Chi has helped in the effectiveness of, hiding my true intention. That's why we're so slow and soft, And then when you try to get, when the person was trying to get me off balance so that they could do the throw, they weren't sure why it wasn't working. You know what I mean? So I think we have for me personally, we have an innate ability to hide certain things. But, like you said, if you're not fighting with it, like actually sparring and getting punched and get kicked, like Mike Tyson said, you get punched and, your plan is out the window. So when you're used to getting hit, and beaten up, like it's just another day, So when I got thrown and landed pretty hard, like that could have easily broke my confidence, but I was just like focused on, okay, how can we finish this? You know what I mean? And that's why I still really love Jiu-Jitsu, because it's pretty much the only martial art that actually finishes someone. You know what I mean? Like we could punch and kick and whatever, but like I would punch Paul Fraga straight in the face and he would laugh at me. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's really good to, get a foundation in something and then explore like how you had to learn ways to not hurt people and not get hurt as a bouncer. And, you explaining yin and yang and how the movements are, and that's really kind of like, for me, I feel it's like your body starts to change subconsciously. So when you're moving, I'm not thinking of the movement. It's just, this is now part of me, So all that thousands of repetitions of Chole foot form or so much time doing the Tai Chi form, it just naturally changes your body over time. And even maybe your psyche, like you're moving and, your natural thought and instinct is so different. You know what I mean? And I'm actually taking singing lessons right now, believe it or not. And every time I go, I always hate my voice, and I'll try to record it. But this person has the ability to get me to do things I never thought I could do. And they're actually using Tai Chi teaching without knowing it. She's like, no, don't don't keep your voice here. You have to project out of your eyes, out of your face, let the air come. And I'm like, oh, this is so similar to how we learn Tai Chi. Because in the beginning, you're so tight and you're trying to do, you're trying to physically look right. And you're not really thinking of the energy like, oh, this goes this way while that goes that way. Like when you start to have that, understanding, your ability and your skill level goes a little higher. But I noticed that even my voice is slowly changing every time I go there without practicing as much as I should, even though I sing in the car all the time. But I just noticed that my natural ability gets better by the practice. So then I really felt like that with Tai Chi. Like I was like, oh, I get it. And then I started looking at all the movements as these are really easy to relate through push hands. So like you said, if the teacher actually can show you the applications and self-defense applications, it's really fun, And then when you're doing, I'm like, oh, I could be doing this, that, and the other. And there's, just like other martial arts, so many strikes and locks. And like you said before too, like throwing and yeah, it's really fascinating stuff, But what about Kung Fu? Like how do you feel is effective for fighting and self-defense? Is the same process for you, or do you, because like you just, and I know you don't really, forms is great and all like that, but like, you were saying before, Taekwondo, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, free sparring. Do you still have some sort of maybe conceptual idea of taking something that you've learned and trying to apply it into your self-defense techniques, or how does that go for you?
That's a very good question, man. I don't know if I've actually really, if I've really, sat down and really thought, hey, I'd really like to try this technique. I don't know. I guess it's just the way how I've been taught Tai Chi, especially when it comes to techniques and when it comes to push hands and free sparring and stuff. I'm one to let the situation present itself. If I want to do for example, if I want to do an arm drag, but the arm doesn't present itself, well then I'm not going to like actively try and psych the person out so I can get that arm so I can do the arm drag. No, I want to do the arm drag, but if the arm isn't there, I ain't stressing it.
So you're like countering more, like a counter fighter.
Yeah.
More.
Like, okay, I want to do this arm drag, but it's not there, but something else is there. Okay, if something else is there, I'll just go to that, So yeah. Me, I have very limited experience with jiu-jitsu, but one of my good friends actually has a jiu-jitsu school right down the road from me here. It's a Spartan martial art. And he was literally saying, like, look, same thing as my push hands teacher was telling me. Hey, whatever happens, whatever opportunity presents itself in the time, that's what you take. Don't have a preconceived idea of what you want to do, because once you do have that preconceived idea, just like what Mike Tyson said, you go get punched in your face, and now that is out of the door. So instead of having this notion, just going there and be free. Right? I think that's the same thing in jiu-jitsu as well. Just be free,
Well, one thing I learned from jiu-jitsu, and you probably, once I explain it, you'll probably agree with me and have done something like this too, is like in jiu-jitsu, the first year or two is just survival. You're just trying to survive. There's no way you're going to tap anyone out probably for a very long time. But you're learning technique. You're learning how to escape positions and get a submission, for example. So then you finally submit someone and you're like, most people just quit because they just can't deal with loss. It hurts their pride too much, you know what I mean? And even to this day, it sucks losing, but it's just temporary. You'll get better if you keep going. But the one thing that I kind of realized years ago when I was training jiu-jitsu and having a conversation with a very good black belt, Josh Manso, he's like a real martial artist. Like, he doesn't even want to teach or do it anymore. He just fishes all the time now. You know what I mean? But like, he just like, he reached a certain level. I used to call him the Jimi Hendrix of jiu-jitsu because he was just that good, and very good at getting you to be able to do it as well. But he was like, listen, when you were with the beginners, attack, try everything. Force the arm drag, force this, force that, go for it. Develop your ability on an unwilling opponent to utilize these techniques. And then when you're with a black belt or someone who's much higher than you, you got to be careful because there's going to be a lot of traps. And like, he just could destroy me all the time. And he goes, it's like fishing. I have all these little hooks with bait on it. And no matter which one you choose, I got something for you. I'll get you. Like, there's just, I'm just throwing it there. Like, you're going to have to like, your mind, you're going to have to like really think a lot, more deeper and about the possibilities of things happening. And again, it's like a chess game, but I started relating that into the trolley fight. Like a lot of people were having problems throwing a sao tray, but we hear sao tray is such an important technique. So I started analyzing our sao tray and I felt like it was deficient. It was really deficient. So I started seeing other trolley fight styles, even Pekwar. And, if I want to hit you with a sao tray, it's going to have a very good time. I can't just, here comes the sao tray and land it. It's not going to work. So I noticed that we weren't 1, 2, 3. For example, straight, sao. We weren't 1, 2, 3. We were 1, 2, and 3. There was some kind of delay. So I started realizing that we had been practicing it wrong for a long time. So now we have this sao tray, and we really try to do it early on so that you can be much more successful with it. So again, with beginners, trying techniques like, okay, I know I'm pretty safe, and we use a lot of Western boxing, jab, cross hook, whatever, front side round kick for kicking. But like, if you're with a beginner, that's where we would try to do some setups, or someone who's just not at your level yet. That's where we try to do these things that maybe with somebody more advanced you shouldn't try. So kind of like your yin yang theory, like, okay, if this person is not as a threat, okay, I'm going to practice my attacks. I'm going to practice my setups. Make you think I'm doing this and then go there. One hand lies, the other hand tells the truth, so to speak, And then when they're like more advanced to you, like, I think countering is very important, and also maybe making them think you're doing something when you're not really doing it. So it's almost like you're changing your ability to fight by having so many different personalities as a fighter rather than only one. Because as you know, like when you're in the same school fighting the same people, they get better than you, and then you get to their level, then you get better than they, and you got to outsmart them. And that's why like jiu-jitsu tournaments, they're out there video recording, because there's going to be some new sweep or some new combination, because everybody keeps stalemating after a while, and the fights become longer. So that's why I always like to ask, martial artists that I respect, like, when it comes to the fight and getting a little deeper, like, okay, when you're sparring, like, what are you doing? Like, what's your strategy? What's your theory? I'll obviously learn the basics and spar, and you gain a lot from that. But is there anything else? Like, I'll handicap my fighters. Only one hand's free, you can't kick, but the other person can do everything. Or I might have 2 or 3 on one. Obviously, you can't win, but it changes your awareness, just like a blind person can hear really well, because they're handicapped and they have to develop a different type of sense. So sometimes, like, to me, that can be much more important than, oh, let's do sub-G Kao Da again 10 times, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that has its place too. But like, just like Tai Chi, like you were saying, Tai Chi and Tai Chi Chuan, right? There's a lot of people that just practice the form, and then there's some people that do the applications. Now, if you go to punch somebody that just does the form, they might be able to wreck you. You don't know. But the people that are fighting, obviously, they're pushing themselves a little further, and they'll be a little bit more comfortable, because once you get punched in the face, like, if you're not familiar with it, who knows how you're going to react, But yeah, sorry that I took all that time, but like, I just felt like, like you started making me think about something that was really important. Wanted to throw in there,
But I will answer that. I'll give you another, a little short, a different kind of answer, okay?
Sure.
So it's pretty much like what I had said before with Taekwondo, right? Taiji has the push hands, right? Push hands is definitely not sparring, right? But it's an exercise. But it's an exercise for sensitivity, right? So, okay. You start off doing the push hands single, stationary, right? And then you get to double, stationary, right? Then you get to single moving step, right? So single moving step will be the same thing, but you're moving around the place, but you're just keeping one hand connected, right? Okay, so now we up the ante. Still moving step, but now instead of one hand, now we have 2 hands in play, right? So now we're getting a little bit more advanced here. Now we're getting what's going to happen. Now we're getting into a realm which is a little bit closer to wrestling, right? When you really check it out, right? Because the next step for Taiji push hands after double moving step is free sparring. Right? And Taiji free sparring doesn't look nice IG free sparring looks like Shui Jiao. It literally does. It looks hard. It's wrestling. It's like, what? I didn't know Tai Chi looked like this. Right? Tai Chi fighting is not pretty. Right? That whole picturesque thing, no.
China, they use elbows and knees and punch each other too. It's pretty remarkable. Some of those schools, they actually full contact fight and actually fight in the sandshell. So yeah.
I mean, you have to think about it, right? When you talk about Tai Chi Chuan, everybody thinks about Peng, Lu, Ji, and An, right? But remember, it's not just 4; it's 8 of them, right? So you have Jiao, Kao, Lie, and Sai. This is off the cuff comment, but I remember one of Conor McGregor's last professional fights. He won by knocking out somebody with his shoulder. You remember that? I remember seeing that, and I was like, everybody's like, "Oh wow, I didn't know you could do that. Didn't know you could do that." And I'm like, "Yo, that's a great use of cow."
And that's one thing I learned also from Tai Chi is that, like, if your joint is manipulated, the other joint is your escape mechanism. You know, so if you lock my wrist, I got my elbow. If you lock my elbow, I got my shoulder. You lock my shoulder, I got my waist. You know, like, so very good stuff. You know, and again, like all martial arts that have reached a high skill and that instructor has that high skill is very similar. You know, even learning Taising Pekwar from my Sifu Chelkern, you know, he starting to do monkey and a lot of the ground, the Datong stuff. I was like, this is jujitsu. And he just looked at me and says, like, all good fighting is the same. I was like, you're right. You know, because those are like moves in jiu-jitsu where you know the person grabs your legs and throws both of your legs to the side. You have to learn, like push hands, how to let it affect you. I could let you turn me completely sideways, but when you push me this way, I can flip this way and put my foot on your hip and replace my guard. So it's the same thing in Taising Pekwar. I was like, oh man, but again, without a good instructor, it's just movements. And you know, if you just sometimes guess, which is good to guess, you should always wonder what it is that you're doing, but you might be guessing wrong. You know what I mean? Because like I see a lot of martial arts styles too, and you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but like it just looks like maybe somebody was watching Shaw Brothers movies and decided, oh, let's just make a form out of this and call it whatever style, you know, like rolling on your back and doing, I don't know, you know, like just I've seen some very bizarre stuff, and I'm like, I think this is not real. You know? And also, it's like doing a kick up. You know, like people do a kick up when they're sparring. I'm like, why are you wasting all your energy for? Like, you know, like. You know, so I think, you know, unfortunately in martial arts, we need to demystify it, make it more real, you know, more scientific and more of a, you know, less of an art sometimes and more of like, this is a practice and a skill, you know, like, yeah, the art is something we develop over time and we all have our own expression of it. Or when we're doing our forms, of course, that's the performance art. But like, we have so much really cool stuff in the Chinese martial arts, you know, and if we're not practicing it the right way and being open and training with other people, you know, we're really missing out, I think, you know, and you know that I think you have the same mindset as me. But let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about what is the hardest part of developing someone's Kung Fu or Tai Chi, even though they're both the same, they're both martial art. I don't know, for me, I feel like they start one place and then they meet in the middle, like, you know, and then they cross over to do, like, one goes soft, but the other one's hard. And then as you advance, that's soft, or the other one becomes hard. So like, let's talk just Tai Chi and Kung Fu for the sake of beginners, but like, or people that aren't familiar, but like, what would be the hardest part of developing Tai Chi first? How about that?
Well, okay. I just want to say something what you said about the roads and the mountain and so on like that. My teacher likes to say, that Shaolin and Wudang, right? When he talks about Shaolin and Wudang, he'll say Shaolin and Wudang because one is pictured as being hard and one is pictured as being soft. Well, they both come to the same point at that mountain, right? They just start at two different points and they go around till they meet at the same point at the top, right? So you have one that's hard and then moves to soft, and then one that's soft and then moves to hard, right? Same point, man. They all get to the same point, right? So the journey is different, but the destination is the exact same. You know? So just speaking on that in terms of the journey of a hard martial art versus, you know, soft one. But okay, so let's get back into what I believe is the hardest part of developing Kung Fu. I really don't want to sound redundant. I don't want to sound like every other teacher that I have asked this to on my channel. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Every answer is a valid answer, right? You could say time, right? Time is one of the most important things, right? Being able to make a decision and go through it. Actually, I think I just answered it for you. That's the hardest part. That's the hardest part of developing Kung Fu, in my opinion. Deciding something that you want to do and sticking to it, right? Because nowadays, and I won't even just say nowadays in terms of today and now. I'm talking even 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. I can speak to that because I was alive 20 years ago and I was feeling this way 20 years ago. Okay? When you decide to do something, right? And you truly want to do it and then decide to really do it, right? The feeling that you get from doing that specific activity is almost euphoric because it's something that you wanted to do, right? Whereas when you want to do something and then you end up not doing it or you end up putting it off, something happens to you. Something happens in your brain where it's like, okay, maybe it wasn't really all that important to me. Probably it really wasn't all that important, period. So actively saying that you want to do something is one part, but actively doing it, really doing it, is the other half, right? So that is what I believe is important, right? Your decision to do something and actually doing it.
Now, for you, I mean, and I totally agree with you. And, we both know there's distractions, but there's also this, momentum that is created by doing it, by practicing every day and doing it over and over again. And when you lose that momentum, it's easy to quit, and we see a lot of people that do quit in the martial arts. So what would you say for you personally is something that just drives you to do it? And also, what is it that you would recommend to people that may be feeling a burnout or maybe feeling like, I want to do Kung Fu or Tai Chi, but, I also want to go play soccer or, or do some other thing. I mean, like, so what would be like your why or your intention for doing it and continuing to do it? And what would you recommend to someone that needs help in that? Like, okay, how can I be more consistent? Like, is it a ritual in the morning? Is it something you think before you go to bed? I mean, anything that you can recommend. So I'll start with you first.
Okay. I'm sorry, Joe, you have to go back.
Okay, so why do you continue doing this? Like, what is it that makes you do this?
The easiest without getting too complicated and stuff, the easiest way for me to answer that is to say, because I love it. Because I enjoy doing it. Right? Once again, if you do something and you don't enjoy it, there's absolutely no way you're going to continue doing it.
But for those that don't know, I mean, you obviously work and you're very busy with that. You have a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful kids. So you still find the time to do this. And I know you enjoy it and you love it, but like, I mean, and you also do see the benefits in it, but there's gotta be, is there some other driving factor?
Yes, there is a driving factor. There is a driving factor. It's my life. It's how I make a living, right? The only way I could practice martial arts, the way how I practice martial arts, is if it was my life, right? This is how I sustain myself, Joe. Right? This is how I put money. This is how I put food on the table for my kids, for my wife, how I pay my bills. I'm a martial arts instructor, right? Of course, I'm not the traditional martial arts instructor that you think I have. I don't have a school. I don't have this.
That doesn't matter.
I'm really a personal trainer. But
and by not having a school gives you the freedom to keep it very traditional and to keep it on the path that you believe is the best for your students, rather than, we're not making money, we need to do this or we need to do that. So sometimes there's a great benefit, like I've told you before, and not, having a school, to be honest.
Well, man, if we got to be honest here, Joe, my whole model right now is it's a lot thanks to you, my friend. through our many talks, our many business talks, our many,
yeah, but you've got a great head on your shoulders, and I just try to present to you the things that I've experienced, and also protect you from my own opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to like just take what I say and follow through with it, because I'm in no way perfect as well. I make a lot of mistakes too, and some of them are real hard, as you know. So yeah, I think, and I agree with you too. Like, the only reason why I have made it to the level I'm at is because I was doing it for a living. There was many times with music or other things and distractions I could have left, but it was putting food on the table. It was my thing. But I always remembered the dream I had as a child of like getting to a certain level, and we talked about Bruce Lee. I still read a lot of his writings that his family has, thankfully released, and I start to understand it a lot more as I get older. And it's just fascinating that, I'm 51 and he died at 32, and I'm still reading some of the stuff, and it's like, it makes so much more sense now than when it did when I was like 12 reading it, for example, and I just imagine myself as an old person in the park practicing forms and being healthy and still having my mentality, I hope, and still being excited about, Kung Fu, and the culture of it is also so much fun, and, the experiences have been amazing. So I think that's helped me too. But yeah, definitely if it's your job, and they say, like, if you really want to be good, you got to teach, because you might think you're good, and then when you start teaching, you realize you're not as good as you thought. And then as you're teaching someone, you're also teaching yourself, you're relearning, and you start to have a very analytical mind. And that's where, you can either make it better, which is what we should be doing, or the next generation should be better than us and evolve it, and some people look at it as like, no, I want to keep it exactly the way it was, like a museum. Like, I don't want to touch it. Because the old masters and 300 years ago were so much better than we are. And that might not realistically be true as well, Like, if we had the cars like that, right? If we had the first car still, because we wanted to keep it exactly the way they decided it, we'd be like 2 miles an hour, you know what I mean? So sometimes, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think traditional Kung Fu was very revolutionary. Like, the styles that we all practice, they were like, yeah, let's go, let's make it better. Whoa, that's better technique. Yeah, let's use it. Let's go for it, So I think that's really cool. But I really think a lot of people need help with that. They need help with developing consistency and determination. That's what I teach in my school. Like, what is your determining factor? Like, if it's not strong enough to you personally, then you're not going to do it, because not everybody's going to teach, right? Not everybody's going to teach. So, yeah. But anyways, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, usually, because you had asked that question, how do I motivate somebody else? How can if someone asks me, how can they do something to get better at it? How do I, okay, well, I'm probably not the best person to ask that, because I've always said, like, look, if you truly want to do something, you will find a way to do it, right?
Okay.
So, if I have a student who comes in for the first time, my thing is to show them everything. I don't like to keep secrets. I'll show them everything. I'll give them everything from the first class, and then they'll be able to decide whether they want it or not. So the motivation factor, I guess I'm not the best motivator,
I think you're great. You're great. It might just be something that
you do this.
I teach kids a lot more, so it's a little different maybe, but like, if you have a choice, then you might choose the easy way. But sometimes, like, I think I don't have a choice, and that's why I do the things I do. Like, if I don't have a choice, then I'll do it. You know what I mean? And it's so easy with so many distractions, and of course, like, parents with their kids, they want their kids to try as many different things as they possibly can. But with martial arts, it takes dedication. Obviously, it's not like you can come for like 3 easy lessons and you get a black belt. And then sometimes showing everything as a way of expressing it so they can see what it's all about is a great thing. But sometimes showing everything could be confusing to some. So that's why I told you before, like, I wish I would have taken classes in psychology, because you have to, like, kind of understand that each of your students has a different personality, and will, there has probably been many students who have quit my school that didn't like something, but I just wasn't aware of it because I was teaching it. This is the way it's got to be. Like, and nowadays, like I'll notice something in, maybe a person's face, or maybe they're being distant from the rest of the students, and I'll go over there and start talking. And based on our feelings and conversations, that's how I will present. Oh, let's do this together. Oh, okay. And then change the smile. And then as a teacher, I think it's sometimes important, right? Like not to always teach, just kind of like pay attention, then offer it when it's ready, because then it'll be accepted a lot more. You know what I mean? But I think you're a hell of a motivator, bro. And you're a living example of it too. Like, you're always doing it. Even this podcast, like this YouTube channel, how many episodes have you done?
66. Yeah.
Congratulations, man. So, you are, and that's the thing. It's like, how do you ask a fighter, hey, how do you fight? Well, okay, now he's got to sit down and think about it. But, that's why I wanted to ask you that, because I see it and I'm like, man, yeah, I agree with you. And when you said that was the hardest part of developing, is being consistent and doing it all the time, I was like, yeah, and that's something that you're good at, especially with this podcast. And I think that's something important to share with everybody, because, but it's funny because you just do it naturally. So for, maybe I stumped you on that question, but like, yeah, that is the most important thing in Kung Fu, actually, really is. It's really hard developing, and even jiu-jitsu schools say, just show up. Once you show up, it'll be great. The gym, just show up. Once you show up, you'll be great,
That's something that Sifu Chin likes to say a lot. I remember he was actually the season finale for season 1. He was my interview, right? And when I asked him that, right, what was the most important thing, right? He said showing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Showing up is 90% of anything. So once you show up, that's the important.
Because the hardest person to deal with is ourselves. We'll make excuses. I'll just go tomorrow. Or, it's funny. Some people are just they always will choose the easy way. And that's hard. And that's why it's not for everybody too. I think it's hard sometimes when we lose students or we don't have a lot of students. But it's not for everyone, unfortunately. They have to be ready. They have to be willing, And if not, then you have to change it into the, okay, we're going to just do Qigong and some Tai Chi movement and happy, like maybe for seniors or something like that. But, when you want to share the stuff that you really feel is so important, you got to find that small 1% of students that is really willing to do it,
Very true. That's very true.
But let's move on, bro. Let's move on, because we still have a few more questions. I know we've been talking a while, but it's just so fun, How has your martial art training helped and influenced your professional career as a teacher now? Is there anything specific? Because I know we've talked a lot about that, but while you're teaching, what is it that maybe in the martial arts training that you've done since the beginning to now really makes you feel like it's really helped you, other than just maybe when you were teaching at the gym or something?
You said it yourself earlier, right? The best way for us to learn something or even to remember it is to teach somebody. Running off of that sentiment, that's pretty much one of the reasons why I do Tai Chi. My career path is the only career path. It's the only way that I can see to do what it is that I love, right? And because I love Tai Chi, I love talking about it, I love watching it, I love doing it, right? Every single time I teach a class, it's never work. It is never work. Because sometimes you have people who wake up and like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. I just don't feel like going to work today. Ever since I gave up my DJing career and just put 100% into my Tai Chi career, right? I've been happy. I have not looked back. Right? I mean, sure, monetarily wise, apart from that, hey, I'd much rather be doing this. I wish I had started doing this from my 30s instead of now in my 40s. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, don't matter. The fact of the matter is I'm doing it now and I love it. And I love showing people what Tai Chi is, right? Because people come in with their preconceived notion, right? So when I show it to them, That's why I teach the way I teach. If you're coming into my class for the first time, I'll show you everything. I'll show you everything that I'm going to teach you in that class. Then at the end of the class, then you'll be like, okay, do I stay or do I go? If you stay, at least you know what you're getting yourself into.
Sweet.
Right? At least you know what form it is. Like, because some people come into a Tai Chi class, I want to learn Chen.
Yeah.
And then you're not teaching Chen, you're teaching Yang. So then, but that's not what I wanted to learn. No, I don't want that to happen. So I give everybody from the get-go, look, this is it. What is that called? That's called the standard 24 form. Oh, what is that called? That's called the Chen Pan Ling form. What's that called? Oh, that's called Fu form. So people can have that educated, that look. That's what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. Fine. It's either I'm either for you or not for you.
Right.
So I just try to help you with that decision. And once that's made, hey, all for it or all not for it. Let's go.
Right. And that makes me think of something too. Like, I think you would agree is like when you've been doing it for a very long time, and if you're lucky enough to get to a certain level, it really doesn't matter what style. Like, I've seen people that really impress me through Hung Gar, Jiao Ga, Hung Fut, Eagle Claw, Mantis, Ba Ji, Tai Chi, pretty much every style I've had the opportunity to witness someone who really expresses the art as in form or in fighting. And it's funny. It's like, we all do all these crazy things to get there, but once we all get there, it's that same spot. It's the abilities that one develops. The ability to do these things, the ability to move where, like, you look at this person like, wow, you definitely have some skill of something. You might not understand what it is, but with martial arts, it almost feels like we all get to that same spot where it's just universal, oh, that looks like what we do. And that's kind of like why, sometimes people who like to train different striking arts, sometimes like, okay, curiosity, fun, and everything like that. But after they've been doing it for a long time, they might be like, yeah, it's really all the same stuff. You know what I mean? So, that's why some people favor one style, get really, really good, and then you can learn something else. And then there's some people that have a hard time figuring it out because they're trying to learn so many things at the same time, But really, you just need a really good teacher and good training partners, really. And then just, you have to put in the work, I think, So heck yeah, But I'm so proud of you, bro, man. It's so good. You're still teaching. You're doing this thing. It's crazy, But let's move on. We'll go on to another question that I really love that you ask everyone, and now you get to answer it. If you could teach the new generation of martial arts only one thing, could be technique, philosophy, what would it be? It's funny, like, you ask everyone this question, but you're not prepared. That's great. I love it because you're so natural. You're just naturally doing it and so curious about everyone else that you never really, really ask yourself that question. But like, it's a friggin' awesome question, and I love it.
It's a deep question.
I love all the answers of all the different people you've asked too. They really, really some good ones. And then you see some people they never thought about it. Like, but it's like it's such an important question. It really is.
It is. So, okay, let me think.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that I would teach
the next generation of martial arts?
Okay, unfortunately, I do have to say the same thing as one of my interviewees.
Yes.
But it is very important. And it was I think it was my last couple of interviews ago. Well, by the time this comes out, it would be 2 or 3 interviews past, and it was with Baji Sifu Vincent May, right? He had said legs, right? But then after he said legs, he said a specific word, an S word, which is structure, right? And that is what I would teach. Structure is the foundation of everything. If you don't have proper posture, you cannot live properly. In classical Tai Chi, Master Hua teaches that the first thing is ideal posture. Now, another thing he likes to say is that if something is true, that means it is universally true for every single endeavor. Ideal posture is one such phenomenon. right? You know ideal posture. Every martial artist knows ideal posture, just probably not in those two words that I'm saying it. For example, when we do lion dance, right? When you're the tail, you have to be in ideal posture because somebody's sitting right on top of your head, right? So remember that time when we were training? Well, I shouldn't say remember that time. How many lion dance trainings have we gone through, Joe? Hundreds, probably thousands, right? But when you put your neck all the way back, right? You put your chin down and push the chin back into your neck. Now you get your crown point feeling like it's pointing up to the ceiling. Okay, yeah, that's first part of ideal posture. So now if I say that, now you have an idea. Once you're in ideal posture, everything else becomes automatic. That's the first thing. That is the key to Tai Chi right there, the posture. So that is my answer to that question, sir. Your posture.
Awesome.
To teach proper posture.
So that would be the next, okay, to teach the next generation. Okay, very cool. And, I even look at that as philosophical too. I mean, if you have a good, posture on how you feel, it helps you deal with a lot of people, what you will accept and what you won't accept. You know what I mean?
Good point.
Yeah, because if you're, like you said, and I had before the heart on the sleeve thing, I used to do that too. And I just always help, always help, always help. And then those people don't treat you the same. So sometimes you have to have the posture to say yes and say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not feel bad about it. You know what I mean? So, and we should respect everyone's path, whether it's with us or without us. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, this has been a fantastic time for me to really talk to you. I learned some new things, even though we've been friends for 20 years, because I don't know if it's just guys, but we don't ask each other a lot of these questions, like we just enjoy our time together, so it's cool to sit down and just say, hey, and hear all these experiences and different things and how they relate to life. And I hope that people will get the same thing I got out of it, where there's like little gems and little ideas, something that might be new or something to just remind us about the path and how to stay on it, or inspire people to train. So really, thank you. And thank you for, I suggested to do this because I love watching you all the time, but like, I feel like we needed to let the viewers get to know you a little bit and give you some time to really just express yourself and talk about your story, because you're just so humble that you don't really do that, I love to just pick your brain and ask you questions too, so.
I've had a number of people ask if they could interview me, right? Because
cool.
I remember the finale of season 2 was with DJ Laidback Luke, right? And I remember he had said to me, you're always, I see these interviews with all these other teachers, but I've never seen one on you. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's by design, because I don't want nobody to know about me. Right. But I've had other people ask about whether they could do the chat for me, and of course the first person who ever suggested it was you, and so that right has always been reserved for you.
Thank you, and I really enjoyed it, and I think the world of you. So I hope all of the listeners or the viewers out there really enjoyed it, But let's finish off with a few other things that you would like to ask all of the people. How can you be contacted?
Yeah, man. Easiest way to contact me, you can get me on Facebook, Wynter Tai Chi. You can get me on Instagram with the same name. Or you can look me up on YouTube. That would be Wynter Tai Chi and Qigong. Yeah, you can also go to my website, wyntertaichi.com. Either way, just send me a message. I'm an easy guy to get in touch with. If none of those float your boat to get in touch with me, you can always contact my brother Joe. He'll tell me what's going on.
Yeah, we actually live close by each other too, so we're not that far apart, So yeah, that is kind of true. And we communicate a lot. We always stay in good touch, But for those of you that are interested in contacting Sifu Mark, we're going to have his description below this video here on YouTube. And there's also going to be a description to get FeiYue shoes. It's probably the best Kung Fu shoe out there. There's going to be a link in there you can choose. They have so many different designs now and stuff like that. And you'll get all the best deals there. So check it out, FeiYue shoes. And Sifu Mark, man, this has been just fantastic. Great. I hope we could do it again. If you guys really enjoy this video, leave some comments too. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because Mark never asked that. He's so humble. But I see you almost have 3,000 subscribers now, which is great. So it's all organic and natural, the best way. Share the video with someone that you think might benefit from it, or someone who's interested in martial arts training. I think they get a lot of cool stuff out of here that's just not technique orientated. And I've been suggesting to Sifu Mark about continuing this series, not just having an introduction to each of the people out there that do martial arts, but maybe we can revisit. Maybe you can revisit some of these instructors. There's so many there. I mean, everybody, all of them are great, but there's some of them, man, the conversations could have went like 6-7 hours, so maybe you do follow-up videos on different topics of martial arts. So if you guys are watching this video, maybe leave a comment or send a message to Sifu Mark about specific topics that you'd like to hear him, ask other martial artists out there. I think that would be really, really cool. So we can all revisit these conversations and these chats and keep it going.
I'm all for it. I like that. Any suggestions, hit me up either, as I said, Facebook, Instagram, my website, or, email, wyntertai@gmail.com. So pretty easy to get me.
Wynter, by the way, for those of you who didn't know. All right, Sifu Mark, anything else you want to talk about before we close it down?
Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the like button. You have no idea how much it helps the channel. Also, I do have some Wynter Tai Chi merchandise, some notebooks and t-shirts if you're interested. Links will be down in the description below. So guys, thank you very much. You have no idea how thankful I am. As Sifu Joe just said, I'm almost at 3,000 subscribers. I remember when I started this this podcast, I had probably 200 subscribers. So going on 2-3 years of doing this podcast now, I've grown up, and that's all because of you guys. So keep on watching, keep subscribing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sifu Joe, for giving me a dose of my own medicine.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And sometimes it's just one little thing, that little diamond of information that can completely change your perspective. So I hope everybody gets as much out of it as I have, All right, brother. Love you, man. This has been great. I'm the host, right? I'm the host. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming to chats.